So, you want to be athletic? Well, simply being strong doesn't cut it. Yo, it's your boy, Coach Lou, at the HHOS of Strength, the strongest gym in Horwich. And we got talking the other week with a few of the gang, and it was talking about how my training's kind of evolved and adapted and changed since I've got leaner. I've lost about 35 kilos in weight, most of it fat. There is some muscle loss, some strength loss, all that jazz. But how has my training been influenced? And the idea behind it is I want to be more athletic, not just kind of sitting into one niche and just being strong. Don't get me wrong, being strong is a big part of it and it is one of the facets of being athletic, but there's more to it than that. Now, recently I've got well into Physical 100 and Physical Asia recently, and then I've just been kind of going down like a rabbit hole of like the old shows I used to watch, like the old Ninja Warrior, like the proper old one with like Nagano, who won it all the time. He was just class. And I've just thought, right, that is the kind of training I want to do. So to be athletic, I think, means you've got to possess multiple different attributes, including strength, but also including speed, endurance, agility, adaptability. Athleticism is multifaceted. You need coordination, which is one of the facets that I particularly like, but it's multifaceted. So you can't just be good or even great at one thing while neglecting other areas. I think the majority of people in gyms or go into gyms should probably train like an athlete or to be more athletic. Don't get it twisted. Being athletic or training like an athlete in no way means you should or you're allowed to look like crap. The top CrossFit guys of today look like old school bodybuilders. Back when bodybuilders were, somewhat athletic. They were strong. They ran. They did more than just pump a load of drugs into them and try to get as big as humanly possible. They were pretty athletic. They were athletes and they looked great. Not like the modern standard of Olympia. But anyway, I digress. So being athletic simply means you look great and you'll perform well to back it up. You'll perform like you look. And you probably won't be riddled with a lot of stiffness or all the aches and pains that come with other types of training. And I say this quite smugly while currently nursing a pretty dodgy, niggly shoulder. So I'm not saying it's going to prevent all injuries, far from it. But you're probably going to get less and you're going to be a lot less stiff and tight than with other training modalities. That's just from what I've seen and my anecdotes. So it doesn't mean much. And okay, we've got metrics to determine what strong is, but I don't think there's kind of like a set metric to determine what athleticism is or being athletic is. And I get it. So I've got my own kind of fitness standards, I guess, or things that I think people should be working towards. And everyone who trains seriously or has trained for a good few years, at least, a decade, and I'm talking about guys mainly here. I'll probably do some women's standards in future, but you should be able to run a 5k without dying. Like, you should be able to touch your toes, and you'd be surprised how many people who can't do this. With straight legs, you should be flexible enough to touch your toes. It's crazy the amount of people that can't do this. You should be able to bang out 10 pull-ups and, 10, 15 dips just at random. You should be ready to do that. You should be able to get 20, 30 push-ups just off the bat. These shouldn't be difficult goals or achievements for you. You should be able to drop into a burpee at any time, at any place. You shouldn't need an excessive warm-up to do these things. And I think most dudes who've been training seriously and consistently for a good while should be able to bench 3 plates. They should be able to squat 4 and deadlift 5 just any day of the week, really. You shouldn't need some peak or anything daft like that. You should just be generally strong, all-rounded strong, because these numbers are strong. Yeah, I saw a dude the other day squatting 240 kilos for 20 reps. That doesn't make your 180 kilo squat any less strong. It doesn't make it weak at all. There aren't just some absolute freaks who walk among us. Don't get disheartened by stuff you see on the internet. But, like, is a kind of different approach to it. And it's something I've been toying with incorporating into the gym maybe every quarter or something. Or maybe every 6 months. And it's kind of like an odd lifts event, so to speak. So you pick 5 or 6 lifts at random. Any kind of lift. And if you can beat everyone on those lifts, then you're strong. You're athletic. I appreciate this is kind of my definition, and it's a very vague definition. But I'm not just like a maximal strength guy. Like, you might have like a 350 kilo deadlift, but you might absolutely suck at pull-ups or dips. Therefore, if there is kind of like a calisthenic lift in this challenge or whatever, you'll suck at that. You won't win every event. So it's odd lifts. So it's random lifts. And it gives you a lot of room to have fun. Literally, one of the exercises could be get this object over your shoulder by any means necessary. You've got to be kind of a great all-rounder. You can't be lacking in anything. You can't just get super fat and strong because you'll suck at, like I said, the pull-ups, the dips, stuff like that, the moving events, if there's any in there. You can't stay super skinny and weedy either and be able to bang up like 100 pull-ups and dips because you'll suck at the static lifts and probably like the moving events like carries and drags. You've got to be all-round athletic. You've got to be a bit of a beast. Now, I really like the 666 challenge that was put out years ago. I think it's such a fantastic goal for anyone who wants to be a freak or a powerhouse. And for anyone who doesn't know, that is a 6-minute mile while also being able to do a 600-pound squat and deadlift. 600 pounds is about 270 kilos. So these are big numbers. Like, you're not going to see these numbers outside of very specific, like, niche gyms. These aren't your everyday numbers we're talking about here. And a 6-minute mile isn't like your everyday run time. So, but being able to do these, like, all 3 of these, or at least 2 of them, the run and maybe a squat or a deadlift, that's, how rare is that, really? Like, you're either going to get guys who are squatting and deadlifting 270 are usually not in very good shape enough to run a 6-minute mile, if you get me. And guys who can usually run a 6-minute mile are usually, typically, too weedy or too weak to do anything else. So this is an insane kind of feat of strength and athleticism to strive towards. And I think there's the 555 challenge as well, which is essentially 500 pound squat and deadlift in a sub 5 minute mile or a 5 minute mile, which is easier statically but harder on the mile time. So depending how big you are and how strong you are, you might want to pursue that. It might want to appeal to lighter dudes, but I don't know. But these, just like I said, being strong is not enough if you want to be considered an athlete or be athletic. And if you develop all of these facets or these attributes to at least a good level, you don't have to be like a professional or anything like that, but if you develop all these attributes to like a decent level, like an acceptable level at least, you'll be able to try your hand at more or less any sport and probably be all right at it. You'll be a dab hand at whatever you put your mind to. So yeah, that's kind of just like where I've been going with training. I used to just be like strength. That's the only thing that mattered. Nothing else, just strength. And yeah, if I get strong, the size will come. And if I'm super strong, then that means I'll be athletic, because if I can squat 250 kilos, then surely I can jump and I can sprint, which to some extent I get, but no, there's more to it than that, and that's kind of where I'm gearing my training towards. And I think the vast majority of people in gyms should be gearing the training towards that, unless you have very specific kind of competition or athletic goals. Right, that's it. See ya.